Have you ever walked away from a conversation, feeling drained, without knowing why? It wasn't the words, it wasn't the topic, it was something deeper, something felt like your energy got pulled out of you. Carl Jung believed the most dangerous people are not the ones who raise their voice, but the ones who quietly influence your soul without even realizing it themselves. See, most people aren't evil, they're unconscious, and the unconscious is contagious. These are not just difficult people, they are dangerous to your inner world. And the first one, the emotional projector. They smile, they talk, they seem normal, even kind, but spend enough time with them, and your confidence starts to slip. Your clarity fades, your peace gets blurry. Why? Because they don't see you, they only see what they've buried inside themselves. Unprocessed shame. They'll accuse you of being selfish, buried insecurity. They'll mock your ambition, repressed anger. They'll tell you you're too intense, you become the mirror, and they break it because they can't face their own reflection. But here's the trap. You try to fix it. You explain yourself. You walk on eggshells, not realizing you're cleaning up a mess that isn't yours. Jung called this projection, the unconscious transfer of inner conflict onto an external target. And when someone does it often enough, with enough intensity, your identity starts to crack. You begin to wonder, am I the problem? Why do I always feel guilty around them? Why do I doubt myself after every conversation? That's how the projector wins, not by logic, but by erosion. They don't debate, they infect, and you lose parts of yourself without even noticing. But here's what you must remember. What they say about you is a confession of who they are, and if you don't learn to see it, you'll spend your whole life apologizing for someone else's shadow. So how do you protect yourself? By doing the one thing they fear most, holding your center. Don't argue, don't perform, don't take the bait, because the moment you react, you're inside their illusion, you're not connecting, you're surviving, and your soul deserves more than survival. This is only the first type. There are 5 more, each one more subtle and more seductive. But now that you've seen the first mask, you'll recognize the next. Stay sharp, stay grounded, and never forget, some people don't hate you, they hate their wounds, and you just happen to touch them. They smile, they flatter, they agree with everything you say. You think, finally, someone who understands me. But wait, their kindness feels conditional, their approval a currency, their presence a strategy, and slowly, without you even noticing, you become obedient. Carl Jung called this dynamic a psychic trap, and Machiavelli, he warned us centuries ago. He who deceives will always find those who allow themselves to be deceived. These people don't yell, they don't control with force, they control with praise, with softness, with strategic silence. You trust them because they never confront you. But that's exactly how they win. They agree, so they can observe. They praise, so you let your guard down. They support, until they find your weaknesses. And once they know them, they never forget. They store them for later. These are the chameleons, the ones who adapt so well you don't even know they're pretending. They don't need to dominate the room. They become the room. And when they speak, it's never loud, but it cuts deeper than any scream. You start to second-guess yourself. Why do I feel drained after talking to them? Why do I trust them so much, yet feel uneasy? Because what they give isn't connection. It's manipulation wrapped in comfort. Here's the trick. They mirror you, not out of empathy, but out of calculation. You laugh, they laugh. You share a secret, they share one back just enough to feel equal. But their words are bait, hooks with honey. And if you're not careful, you start needing them, needing their validation, their presence, their attention. Not because it's real, but because they made you feel seen in a world that often ignores you. That's the genius and the danger. Because by the time you realize what's happening, you've already given them everything: your trust, your energy, your peace. So how do you protect yourself? You slow down. You stop assuming that softness means safety. You watch not just what people say, but what they avoid. You ask yourself, is this connection built on truth or on my need to be understood? And most importantly, you stay grounded in your own reality. Because the moment you abandon yourself to keep someone's affection, you're no longer in a relationship, you're in a performance. And performances always end. These are the people who seem harmless, even healing. But under the charm is control. They don't take your power. You give it to them, gladly, gratefully, until one day you wake up and realize you've been emotionally colonized by kindness. You ready for the next kind? The one who drains you not with words or silence, but with their need to be saved. That's where we go next. The passive manipulator. They don't yell, they don't demand, they just sit there, quietly disappointed, and somehow you feel responsible for their sadness. You enter the room and the air changes, hearts get heavy, smiles disappear, and yet no one said a word. This is the signature of the passive manipulator. They don't control you with force, they control you with guilt, with silence, with wounded glances, with phrases like, "I guess I'm just a burden," or "It's fine, don't worry about me." At first, you try to comfort them. You explain yourself. You tiptoe around their feelings. You carry the weight of their emotional state because you think you're helping. You think you're being kind. But what's actually happening is psychological inversion. They've made you the caretaker of their pain without ever asking for help or taking responsibility for healing. Carl Jung warned us, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. And so they project their unprocessed emotions onto the most empathetic person nearby, you. Your kindness becomes a leash. Your empathy becomes their fuel. You're not in a relationship. You're in a slow, emotional, hostage situation. Here's the twist. They don't even realize they're doing it. The passive manipulator often sees themselves as victims. They don't ask for power, they ask for pity. But pity is a powerful drug. And when they see that their pain earns them attention, they learn to weaponize it. Every time you say no, they retreat in sadness. Every boundary you set, they meet with silence. Not explosive anger, but something worse. Disappointment, and disappointment is disarming. It doesn't feel like control, it feels like failure. And that's the danger, because you begin to manage their emotions instead of living your truth. You cancel plans, you avoid topics, you walk on eggshells, not because you're scared of their reaction, but because you're scared of their sadness, and slowly you disappear. Not dramatically, but piece by piece, compromising yourself in the name of being good. But here's the truth. Compassion without boundaries is self-destruction. You can love someone and still say no. You can support someone without surrendering your stability. Because if your peace depends on keeping someone else emotionally afloat, you're not in a relationship, you're in a trap. And here's the worst part. They often appear harmless. They're quiet, they're soft-spoken, they never yell, but that's what makes them dangerous. Because they disarm you, they bypass your defenses, they make you question your instincts. You wonder, am I the bad guy? Maybe I'm just not patient enough. Maybe I'm failing them. But the truth is, you're failing yourself every time you abandon your needs to protect their feelings. Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. The passive manipulator thrives in the unconscious. They don't want confrontation, they want control through emotion, and the only way to break free is to stop playing the game. Let them be disappointed. Let them feel what they need to feel. That's not your job to fix. Your job is to stay whole, to set boundaries, not build cages, to speak your truth, even if their silence gets louder. Because silence is not always peace. Sometimes it's a trap in disguise, so here's the question you must ask. Are you supporting them or saving them at the cost of yourself? Some people don't break you with insults. They do it with admiration, with smiles, with constant validation. They say things like, "You're amazing. I could never do what you do. You're too good for this world." And at first, it feels beautiful. Who doesn't want to be seen like that? But over time, you start to notice something strange. You feel trapped. You feel watched. You feel like any moment of weakness will ruin the illusion. This is the fourth type Jung warned about, the idealizer. Not the one who sees your flaws and stays, but the one who refuses to see your flaws at all. They don't love you. They worship a version of you. A version that doesn't exist. A version who is always kind, always wise, always perfect. And the more they praise you, the less human you feel. Because now, you can't mess up, you can't fail, you can't have a bad day. Their admiration becomes your prison, not out of malice, but because it puts you on a pedestal you never asked to be on. And from up there, it's a long way to fall. Carl Jung believed this is projection at its most seductive. It doesn't look like control, it looks like love. But it's not love. It's fantasy. They don't connect with who you are. They connect with who they need you to be. You become a mirror. But a mirror that only reflects their hopes, their wounds, their longing for someone to save them. And the moment you show your humanness, disappointment, distance, withdrawal, because they weren't attached to you, they were attached to the illusion. This is dangerous, not because it hurts your ego, but because it chips away at your authenticity. You start to perform kindness, perform wisdom, perform peace. And slowly, you lose the ability to be real. You smile when you're tired. You offer advice when you need silence. You show up strong when all you want is to rest. And the world applauds it. The world rewards the mask. But inside, you feel empty. Because you know they don't love you, they love the character you've been playing, and deep down, you start to resent it. You start to feel like a fraud. Even though you never lied. Even though you never asked to be seen this way. But here's the truth. You are not responsible for other people's illusions. You are allowed to be messy, to be uncertain, to be growing. You are allowed to have needs, to say no, to disappoint, because real connection can't survive in perfection. It only grows in honesty, in shared humanness, in mutual acceptance. Jung said, "The greatest tragedy of the family is the unlived lives of the parents." But it applies to relationships too. The greatest tragedy of connection is the unlived truth of the self, when you spend your whole life trying to be what others admire instead of who you really are. So, step down from the pedestal, let the illusion shatter. Let them see your cracks, because the people who truly love you won't leave when they see the real you. They'll finally meet you. Are you ready to trade admiration for authenticity? Just to finally live as who you really are. There's a type of person who never shouts, never demands, never blames, and still, when they leave the room, you feel lighter. They don't attack you, they don't insult you, they don't even disagree, they just take your time, your attention, your energy. They share their pain, but never listen to yours. They vent, but never ask how you are. They lean hard, but never hold. Carl Jung referred to this kind as the unconscious manipulator, not because they're evil, but because they've never learned to take responsibility for their inner world. So they turn to others, not to connect, but to offload, to use, to absorb. You become their emotional plug-in, their safe space, their therapist, their fix. And if you say no, if you set a boundary, suddenly you're cold. You've changed. You're not like you used to be. That guilt you feel, it's not yours, it's theirs, projected onto you because they refuse to carry it themselves. And here's the thing, you can love someone and still recognize they drain you. You can care deeply and still say, this isn't healthy, because love without boundaries isn't love. It's self-erasure. You weren't born to patch holes in other people's souls. You weren't born to be the constant emotional shock absorber. You weren't born to rescue, repair, and recover someone else's chaos. You were born to connect, to give and receive, to be met, not used. Jung believed that healing begins when you withdraw energy from people who feed on it without ever nourishing you back. But it's not easy. You've built a role, the listener, the empath, the one who's always there. And letting that go feels like losing identity. But it's not loss. It's recovery. It's remembering you're more than what you provide. You're not a charger for broken batteries. You're not the ground others walk on to feel tall. And when you step back, they'll notice. They'll panic. They'll accuse. But that's just proof of the imbalance. Because someone who truly loves you doesn't fear your space. They respect it. They don't shrink when you rise. They rise with you. So the next time you feel the pull to explain your silence, don't. Let it speak for itself. Because sometimes no response is the clearest boundary you'll ever set. Now ask yourself, are you building relationships? Or are you being built over? You've seen them now. The ones who manipulate with charm, who drown you in chaos, who pull your strings with silence, who use your empathy as a leash, who drain your energy and dress it up as connection. These aren't villains in some fantasy story. They're people you know. Work with, live with, love. And the most dangerous part? You didn't even notice them at first, because they don't come with red flags. They come with smiles, compliments, a sense of being special. They study you, mirror you, make you feel seen. until they slowly replace your intuition with their influence. Carl Jung didn't just warn us about these types, he taught that the people we attract are often mirrors of something unhealed within us. Our old wounds, our childhood conditioning, our fear of abandonment, our secret belief that pain is the price of love. But here's the truth, you can't heal someone else by bleeding for them. You can't love someone into wholeness while you fall apart. People don't change when you lose yourself. They change, if they ever do, when they face their own shadow. And that's not your job. It never was. Your job is to see clearly, to break the pattern, to say, I choose peace over performance. I choose truth over guilt. I choose myself. But this doesn't mean cutting everyone off. It means cutting off the behaviors you've been tolerating, the expectations that suffocate you, the silence you've maintained just to avoid conflict, because sometimes the most dangerous person is the one you become trying to survive them. You become reactive, defensive, addicted to approval. You shrink so they don't feel small. You soften so they don't break. You stay quiet so they stay calm. And in the process, you vanish. But Jung's message wasn't about fear. It was about freedom. The kind of freedom that comes when you stop asking, will they still love me? And start asking, do I still love myself? So what do? You pause. You breathe. You remember who you were before they rewrote your rhythm. You stop giving discounts on your energy. You stop apologizing for your boundaries. You stop rescuing people who drown you just to stay afloat. And in that silence, you find something terrifying to them and liberating for you. Power, the kind that doesn't scream, that doesn't chase, that doesn't perform. It just is. Grounded, whole, unshakable. You don't have to destroy them. You don't have to prove anything. You just have to stop destroying yourself to keep them close. You're not cold. You're clear. You're not cruel. You're finally conscious. You're not distant. You're finally home. In yourself. And now that you've seen this clearly, you can't unsee it. So the real question is, are you ready to walk away from anyone? Even the version of yourself that keeps you from being truly free, even if it means disappointing everyone, just to finally stop betraying yourself?